All right, next we're going to hear from Fort Lauderdale and Miami commercial real estate markets. Moderating will be today Joe Gallaher. He's a partner with NAI Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Joe's a player coach, serving not only as a commercial real estate broker, but the broker manager of the NAI Miami Fort Lauderdale office. As a broker, Joe's primary focus is in occupier services, specifically in the retail and land development markets. Joe's clients have leased over 1.4 million square feet of space and purchased over 3 million square feet of property over the past 5 years. But what's more meaningful to me and Joe is that I've known Joe since he was born. Joe's father and I were business partners for about 5 years back in the mid-'80s, and of course still have a great relationship and friendship. And Joe, it's nice to see you up here. You guys do grow up eventually. It's good. Thank you.
Am I on? All right. Thank you, Ron. Yeah, if I told my dad that you were emceeing, he might have actually showed up today. All right. This is going to be interesting because we're all friends. We've worked together for a number of years, and now I got to read a bio. So what's the token word? Proven track record.
Thank you.
You're going to hear a lot of shut up. All right. Well, way to start it off, Gabe. Gabe Garcia-Menocal, SIOR, Executive Vice President with NAI. Gabe is a leader in South Florida's industrial real estate market with over 3 decades of experience representing owners, users, and developers. His expertise spans site selection, logistics, and investment sales across Miami-Dade and Broward. Gabe has been an SIOR member since 2008 and an avid despiser of all things retail.
Very much.
Brandon Weiss. Brandon is an executive vice president also at NAI Miami Fort Lauderdale. Brandon is our retail go-to, specializing in leasing and tenant rep with a strong track record over the past 20 years, plus advising national brands, franchisees, franchisors, and local entrepreneurs. His deep market insight and legal background make him a go-to expert in a very competitive retail market, which we all know is better than industrial. And Timothy Merriman Jr., he's also a partner with NAI Miami Fort Lauderdale. Timothy's claim to fame is through real estate investment sales and office leasing, with a specialty in challenge asset sales throughout South Florida. He has over 17 years experience in his field, a master's in business administration, and is currently a member of the global organization, I have to say this slowly, Real Estate Executive Council, REIS, and sitting member of the FIU Real Estate Advisory Council. Thank you, guys. It's weird, I'm used to being in your seats, and I don't know what to do in the seat, and I can't read out loud very well. All right, let's start with a general big picture outlook. We heard from the other 3 markets just north of us. Big picture outlook, what are you seeing right now in Miami-Dade and Broward CRE markets in your respective disciplines? Are we in a moment of transition, momentum, something else? What's going on? Gabe, you start us off.
I definitely see a slowdown. I mean, the metrics tell you, vacancy is up, rents are a little flat right now. To echo Patrick's fact, he pointed out that a lot of the bigger buildings that have been built for the last 5 years and are being built today, some of these projects started last year and they're being delivered today. These are just big bombers, big buildings, and we don't have tenants that are going to take 100, 150,000 right now. They're few and far and in between. The market really has always been active in that 30,000 square feet and under to satisfy the demand on the smaller entrepreneur, the small business. And so there's a little bit of that going on. You can't devise these buildings any more because they'll be like bowling alleys. So you have a lot of that. We'll get into the tariffs, I guess, a little later, but inflation, rising costs, things of this nature also have a lot of people scrambling, a lot of people being very cautious of how they're going to expand their business, their cargo business, whether it's 3PL, just straight freight forwarding, warehousing, whatever they do, they're holding back a little bit, and they just want to see how it goes before they make a commitment to do an expansion. It doesn't help that landlords have been a little bit holding the line instead of, trying to massage the deal and get the vacancy filled. So they're trying, but I think they need to be a little bit more aggressive. That's kind of my take right now.
All right. Brandon, what are you seeing?
The retail market in Broward and Miami-Dade has just been extremely tight. It's been that way for a couple of years now. Rental rates are record highs, and it's been a real challenge to find locations for tenants. Not seeing any change in it. I mean, there's been a little bit of softening in certain areas. Don't get me wrong, there's space to rent, but it's usually the new construction. So like Doral got a lot of retail right now. But I feel like the only vacancies are because the landlords are asking a lot in rent. They could lease it out tomorrow if they're a little bit more reasonable. Broward County is similarly tight. I can't tell you the last time I did a deal for someone on a visually vacant space. Virtually everything we're doing right now is getting ahead of what is coming and trying to be the first to know about it. Otherwise, if you see a vacancy, they're already talking to 3 or 4 other tenants. So it's a challenge. I tell everybody 2 problems in retail right now: availability and rental rate. Good luck finding it, and then hopefully you can afford it. And with those 2 combinations, it's a challenge. I mean, I can understand the high rental rates on a new construction. Everything costs more. But then all the existing buildings are, pulling up their rental rates to say, hey, they're getting it over there. So if they have a vacancy, one space in a shopping center, 1,500 square feet, they got an asking rate, they're not moving from it right now. So it's a
By
tough
and large,
time.
there's a line of people waiting for that same, to your point, because if it's vacant, then it's a tight market.
Yeah.
There's expansion out there.
You can be aggressive, but not ridiculous, but be prepared for people who moved here who either aren't represented or don't know what they're doing, agreeing to rent commencement dates that are ridiculous, that they're definitely going to be paying rent before they're open, agreeing to no tenant improvement dollars, little things like that, higher annual increases that, I think we've gotten a little bit more comfortable with, but it's expensive to be a retailer, and it's not surprising why, a burger now is $25 with an iced tea when it used to be, $15. Consumers are bearing the costs.
Right. Tim, what about you?
I'm going to have to echo exactly what Gabe and Brandon are saying. Our market is extremely tight. The higher the class of the product, whether it's industrial or office, you're finding that the vacancy rates are unusually low. Rents are much higher. The more amenities, you have more people chasing it. When you start to fall into that B and C class, the vacancies start to creep up, and it's harder to fill that space. You're seeing with a C-class warehouse about a 10% vacancy. You go into the B, you're somewhere around 6%. You get up to an A, it's less than 2%. We're also seeing the same thing reflected in the rental rates. Everybody's also chasing the same product. So the Bs and the Cs tend to sit on the market much longer. The As, you can actually backfill almost immediately.
You teased office a little bit in the previous panel. They spoke a lot about different markets. And South Florida, we had the big influx of folks from the Northeast post-COVID occupy a lot of office space downtown. And we had a ripple effect from that where the other more tertiary markets down here got the benefit of that impact. What are you seeing currently with regards to those more neighborhood office markets compared to more of the CBD for office, Tim?
Those are extremely difficult to lease up. You're finding that you almost have to give it away. I'm managing and leasing some buildings now at $20 a square foot, and we're still experiencing high vacancy rates. Even with OpEx being somewhere around $12 to $14, you're talking about the net effective is this landlord's getting $6 per square foot, and we're still having challenges with leasing it up.
Is that due mainly towards a lack of interest in having an office space? Is it a reflection of less people coming to work? Is it a reflection on, will we need 15 offices and the floor plate and the design doesn't currently conform to what we need? Like what, if, and it's hard to pigeonhole because I know each experiences its own situation, but is there some commonality there?
I think post-COVID, we started realizing we didn't need as much office space. I was reviewing the plantation zoning code. If you'd look back a few years ago, it was one parking space per 500 square feet. Then you see the strike through, it went to one parking space for 250 square feet. If you look at the current, it's one parking space for 150 square feet. We're seeing they're becoming more and more efficient in how they're using the space, and they're cramming more people. I'm not sure if people are really working from home as much, or we're actually cramming where it used to be 40 people in a much larger space. We're actually condensing them into a much smaller space.
Brandon, you were talking too about the interest in expanding and how there's a high demand for space and typically a queue up for a vacancy and kind of projecting where the next vacancy is coming. Are you seeing some trend as far as retailers that are out there that are being a little bit more aggressive and can hit those rates, or who's active right now and who, I guess, the other side of that same coin, who are you seeing starting to slow down a bit?
I think the people who can pay the most are going to be the food and beverage, but at the same side of other side of that argument is they're the most volatile. So if you pick the wrong location, or you're paying too much in rent, and if you're not, really generating crazy numbers, and we hear about numbers on Las Olas or even in Brickell, 20 million, 25 million, but then across the street it could be another restaurant and it's crickets. It's very specific to what the trendy place in Miami is, or even Boca Raton on Restaurant Row. You've got restaurants that you can't get a seat at for 2 hours, and you got a vacant restaurant, right next door. It did get a little easier for tenants. They're saving 3% now in the sales tax, so that's good for everybody. Although my thought is landlords will just use that as an excuse to jack up the rates 3%.
The short term.
And right, but at least they're, it's a savings, where in Miami-Dade it used to be 7%, so now it's 0, so it goes in their pocket theoretically. A lot of my clients are membership-based, whether it's fitness or other types of concepts, and they can't just charge more for something. And as a result, if they're experienced operators, they know what they're doing, they're gonna really set me in terms of monthly expectations. And for a location that is extremely hard to find, say Boca Raton, Brickell, some parts of Fort Lauderdale, they might be willing to pay a little bit more than they really want to, but these are the people that have run a lot of different retail businesses and have been successful. So they know what they're looking for. And so trying to find the needle in a haystack is my job. So they have me. And so it's hard to find what they're looking for, to find that right size space, the right type of property, and still make economic sense. And even when you're negotiating, you think you got the landlord's attention, but if someone comes in and gives the asking rate and takes it as is, no TI, and doesn't understand the process to get open for business in South Florida, yeah, they're gonna be paying months and months of rent before they're open, and that'll kill a business very quickly too.
Gabe, that kind of switches over to industrial too, because for the longest time, what we were hearing is industrial is super tight. We can't build it fast enough. There's a waiting list. The rates are rising on par with what retail was at the time. And it was tough for you guys, especially on the tenant rep side, to find space for your clients. Are you seeing that starting to level off a little bit? You mentioned the big spaces.
It's still the case. Like, again, 30,000 feet and under is the bread and butter of our industry, of our market. And my team's sitting out there somewhere, and you tell them, hey, tell me where the top 5 under 10 to 20,000 square foot spaces are, or tell me if you have more than 5. And they'll say, no, there's about 5 good functional spaces where you could put a 53-foot trailer in the back, and run a decent 3PL or freight forwarding operation. There is a shift, like we've all spoken today, of moving towards Class A because the buildings are better designed, they're a little bit higher. But developers, in their infinite wisdom, what they did is they said, well, how much can we cover in a piece of dirt? And they build a massive building, and when you try to cut 30,000 feet, it's, again, you get 4 doors in the back and a bowling alley. And so that's the challenge. There's a big schism here, a big vacancy on the big stuff, and then there's very limited vacancy on the little stuff. So yeah, it is a challenge to find quality space, and the rents have kind of stayed there. To get a rental rate under $20 triple net on a 20,000 square foot space or under it's still a challenge. Now, if you start creeping up to the 30s, 40s, and 50s, then you start seeing that rental rate dip even below, in some cases, $16 a foot, which we had not seen in quite a while. So it's kind of interesting.
And a lot of your focus is in the Doral market. Does that also ripple to the other industrial markets as well, Opa-locka, Hialeah, down south even? It's
interesting. With the tariffs, we've seen an uptick on subleasing, and we've seen an uptick on a lot of consolidation. In like, for example, let's pick on Gratney. So the Gratney area, that's older buildings. We have a sublease out there, 284,000 feet. We barely got 70,000 leased up, and the sub-landlord had to take their rental rate from $16.50 triple net. We did a deal there, I believe it's at $13.50. Can somebody confirm that? $13.50? Confirmed. So we did that. So to your point, yes, some of the other markets are hurting a little more than Doral, Medley, where you're still seeing some of the better buildings, and landlords could be a little bit more aggressive and say, yeah, you want that 20,000? Yeah, it's going to cost you 20 triple net. The challenges are now, we're seeing the increase in insurance we've seen for the last few years. The tariffs are exacerbating a lot of that, because let's say you need to build or demise, all the aluminum cost has gone up, steel has gone up, HVAC components have gone up. People are trying to manage that, but it's just, there's no way to manage it other than drop the rate. And a lot of people underwrote space at a particular rate. So it's like, you gotta go talk to the asset manager and say that whatever he underwrote at 17 triple net, well, that's 15, and he's now has to report above, and he's like, no, find me a 17. And that's a challenge. So it just depends on what part of the market you're looking at, right? And what class. Like the older stuff is suffering more. I can tell you one of the biggest challenges is finding good quality perishable space, like cooler space, refrigerated space. The stuff in the market right now is not good, and nobody is doing anything about it. There's one developer, Long Point, they're building 130,000 square foot refrigerated space, but they want $30 triple net. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, but they built it. They saw the need, but nobody's paying it now. Everybody's being very cautious.
And you guys both spoke about this, Tim. I'm sure you're going to echo it too. Is I saw you nodding. Cost of insurance, real estate taxes going up, cost of construction, interior build-outs have gotten crazy. Brandon, you touched on restaurants as being a really hot item, but also it's a very sexy item, so it has flashes. They do well for a bit until the new shiny thing comes along, and then people start diverting to a different direction.
Yeah, and there's good retail and bad retail. Just around our office, what I think developers have been forced to deliver in terms of the glass pedestal and the ground floor retail of all these high rises that are going up in Fort Lauderdale, there's not a critical mass of people there yet. And so they're trying to lease it. So, that 3.5%, 4% vacancy of Broward County, a good percentage of that percentage is just not really leasable space, because outside of Brickell, where you do have the high rises and people working there in the daytime and nighttime population, where no one's ever said, let's get in my car and go to Brickell, to work out. You're going after the captive audience that's there. A lot of the vacancy in Fort Lauderdale is just not dense enough to be leased. They're not parked well, sufficiently. If 6 customers come in and there's a real estate office next door and there are 15 residential realtors working there, there's no parking. And the hardest thing is to get someone to get in their car and go to you, and if they can't find parking, they're probably never going to come back. So a lot of the vacant spaces are just not good retail today. Now, Brickell was that way when we had an office down there years ago. But now that residents are living there and the office market is there, they're getting $100 a square foot in rent.
Right.
The triple nets that you touched on, 15, 20 years ago, the anomaly was a double-digit number. Weston, Miami Beach, that was about it. And now, when someone gives me a single digit, I have to ask them all the pertinent questions, make sure they know what they're talking about. Is that real estate, insurance, and CAM, or you
What am I
just give me the CAM? Don't want any surprises. But yeah, properties sell for $90 million. Before it was $20 million. Real estate taxes go through the roof, and then the tenants have a problem because they have to pay it. So I've had a lot of conversations, not so much recently, but probably before the pandemic, when properties were selling like crazy. They could afford the rates before, and then after the property sold, they're like, what is this bill? How did that happen? So we're trying to help them out in those situations.
Those big real estate hikes or those surprises, and the tenant gets that slow burn of that dramatic increase over time, and it really makes them more sensitive to the base rate. And that base rate, Tim, that's obviously what, on the investment side, that's how everything is calculated. So are you, between that pressure that tenants are getting on the base side, compounded on mortgage rate increases and other lender requirements that are out there, are properties selling right now? Is stuff trading? Is it trading also in a conventional sense, or is it an all-cash basis?
I'm seeing more single-tenant buildings, not a lot of retail trading at the moment. It's not my bread and butter, but in terms of approaching properties, it's once in a while I'm talking to landlords about, oh yeah, we just sold it, here's the new owner, or it's under contract, so we got to pause your negotiation until the new ownership comes in, which inevitably is going to probably kill that deal because the numbers we were talking about before are going to go way up, and then your real estate tax is going to go up as well. So getting involved in a transaction at that stage is not a good timing.
Tim, what are you seeing in that world?
I'm seeing the properties that are desirable, laid out correctly. Those things go very quickly. The stuff that's older, that's obsolete, it tends to sit on the market. You're gonna pay a premium for the nice, sexy stuff. So $250 to $300 for industrial, which I thought was absolutely absurd. We're actually seeing people are getting it. As soon as it hits the market, it's gone. We're seeing that there's a lot more development because of that. I think right now we have, 1.2 million square feet that's actually being built because of demand. We got another 3 million that's already been proposed and it's gotten approved because of the industrial demand.
That's industrial product. That makes sense.
The users are out there more buying, that's for sure.
Users want to. They want to lock in and secure themselves from all these increases and challenges.
But,
And educating my clients about CPI increases and things like that, some of the landlords are requiring or attempting to get. It's just like,
Bust out the Excel.
yeah, you just 3 to 4%. It'll be better. It'll make your life easier.
Gabe?
it's funny having that conversation about bumps, annual bumps. It's like, hey, look, CPI is at 2.8,
Which CPI are you talking about?
Exactly, and the landlord said, well, I need 4. Well, yeah, I know you underwrote it at 4, but tenants telling me CPI is at 2.8. We want 3,
Well,
and you're having
Kimco
that
came
conversation.
out with a mandate, inflation begun, from the CEO being 5% minimum annual increases. And so the agents were telling you up front, don't waste our time, we're not joking. But to me, that was a permanent solution to hopefully a temporary problem. And so, 8 years from now, why are we still paying for that problem? So there's got to be somewhere in between that works better.
And Gabe, you introduced the idea. I wanted to jump right on it, but I had to let things breathe a bit. Tariffs, big T word. How's that rippling in your world?
It's funny because you talk to certain people and everything's great, and you talk to certain people and everything's terrible. Politics aside, we're living it, we're here, right? I have a tendency to, and I still cold call. 30 years into the business, I still go out and cold call. Those guys know it over there in the back. Those guys are cold calling all the time.
I can't see them. I think
They're over there. They're over there. I know they're over there. They'll raise their hand at one point, but those guys really go out there and hit a lot of doors. I occasionally go out. I always tell them, go to the back, talk to the forklift operator, talk to the warehouse manager first. Don't go to the gatekeeper. Don't talk to the manager. No, talk back, and you'll get the truth back there. And the truth is, there's a lot of rescrambling. There's a lot of people trying to find alternative ways to reroute that cargo. And all of a sudden, there's spaces that are, you have a guy that has 30, 40,000 feet, and he's not using 10, 20,000 feet. So he'll call you up and say, hey, or you knock on the door, hey, could you sublease a portion of my space? And sure, we'll take the gig, we'll go and do it. And we just had a deal that collapsed. We were about to sign a sublease, and the guy said, I got a buddy that his lease is expiring, he's moving in with me. So one of the things that I'm seeing a lot with tariffs is as the subleasing market is popping up, a lot of those sub-landlords are saying, well, I don't want to pay commission, I don't want to get beat up on rate. I'm going to find somebody to partner up with. So that's a trend that we're seeing, and two deals of ours have kind of gone south because there's this consolidation happening. But you pick up the phone and you start talking to other tenant reps or even listing agents, master lease, right? And they'll tell you this is happening more often than people talk about. And it's real. It's a real thing. And it's a result of the tariffs. You ask people that move cargo, it's like, how are you faring? And they're like, listen, it's not the tariffs that's the problem. It's the on and off, right? The 1 week is one thing, the other week is the other, and there's no consistency. And that's what's, keeping those guys uncertain. They can't do anything about it. Like they can't say, okay, this is the road. Okay, now we implement a plan. If the road is doing this constantly, then they can't implement a plan. They can't say we need to chase this or that and grow and get the bigger space or right size and go the opposite direction because you never know when the account's coming back.
Right.
It goes both ways. It's very strange.
In that same vein, and this can go with all three of you, I'm curious your perspectives, and I probably shouldn't be asking this question. Politics aside too, with immigration issues and the big push to the big ICE presence, I would say, in South Florida specifically. I mean, I see that in retail. I'm curious your perspective, Brandon, Gabe, starting with you. Are you seeing that as it relates to warehouse size?
Oh yeah, it's
being
huge.
Able to speak with somebody.
I don't know where the flower industry, how they fared through these last two holidays. So for the flower industry, it's Valentine's and Mother's Day it's like 60-70% of the revenue comes from those two dates, and leading up to that, right? And you go to a bouquet company, and they were struggling because those jobs they're hard. You're in a cooler at 34 degrees putting bouquets together, and there was not enough labor to handle that. That's just one example. Those are challenges that the small business operators, well, flower industry is a little bit different. You pick on perishables, it's the same. If you're cutting fresh fish, it's like,
The clock is ticking.
and that's perishables even more, because we're all getting fed here. That comes from a warehouse, cutting the meat, doing that, preparing, packing, sending. That's done by a human being, not AI, and that's the labor that we use.
Brandon, same on the retail side with back of house for restaurants specifically. And
I haven't really had any clients mention any issues with that so far. They're more talking about the customer's experiences where they generate the revenue. So, everyone's a customer. Everyone's got to eat, buy stuff. So I don't really think that it's impacted any of my retailers so far.
all right. Well, I know they want us to wrap up. We got to catch up on time.
They're playing the music.
Yeah, where's the hook?
Wrap it
It's
up.
behind me somewhere. Tim, I'll start with you. Is there any other trend or shift, something that we haven't talked about that's different that you're seeing out there that you'd want to share? That it's on the peripheral. It's coming up, but it's not here yet.
I just see more integration with AI, making sure that they can adapt the new properties so they can incorporate it. I see a lot of that, making sure that the power source is there, to make sure it's a smart warehouse, smart office, making sure there's more outlets in preparation for the changes that may end up coming and being implemented later on down in the future.
Brandon, any new markets? Any overhyped markets?
Well, the Flagler Manor area north of Fort Lauderdale is, slated to be redeveloped. The Sears building came down. They're start going vertical. And it's going to be a very dense area once people start living there. But at the early stages, I wouldn't want to be one of those early retailers paying through the nose to test it out. You'll see that up in, Palm Beach, the Avenir, Westlake Market, out by Lion Country Safari. I started hearing about 2 years ago. I'm like, why is anyone doing this? You drove out there, they're building nice big homes, but it just seems silly to be right outside Lion Country Safari. I mean, they put it there for a reason years ago. But they're charging $60 a square foot, plus your triple nets are gonna be another 15 for an area that is, it's the opposite of what it should be. Retail follows residential, not retail leads residential. And so, similar to like West Del Rey, the project out there that Kite owns and develops, they built it and they were charging high rents and no one was living there. And so the first round of tenants basically all failed except for the anchors, and they come and go. So I advise clients, you're better off paying a little bit extra, but being in the right spot at the right time versus overpaying for the honor of being the guinea pig who tests out a market.
Gabe, anything else?
I see a future in pickleball courts in all these vacant warehouse spaces. So that's my.
Sorry, vacant warehouse spaces.
Yeah, vacant warehouse.
We'll talk about that later.
Pickleball.
There's no parking.
It doesn't matter. It's pickleball.
Tell me, tell the county.
All right, thank you guys very much. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.